Thank you for joining us for our first India Cloud and Data Center Market Brief, which is sponsored by ST Telemedia, Global Data Centers, and Onion Technologies. I'm Stuart, the editor at W.Media, as well as your host for today. India's data center and cloud markets are incredibly fast-paced, and the need for data centers in India is growing exponentially as data consumption and generation by 500 million digital users is reaching unprecedented levels. And cloud adoption is rapidly increasing as 40% of new enterprise applications in India are predicted to go cloud native by 2022. So today we'll take a deep dive into the state of the industry and how you can tap into these billion-dollar markets. So coming up on today's show, we'll be joined first by Srijit G, the Associate Vice President from our silver sponsor, ST Telemedia Global Data Centers in India, to take a look at how we can leverage game-changing technologies to stay ahead of the disruption curve. Srijit has over 20 years in managing the complete data center lifecycle, including design, implementation, transition, operations, and service management. And next up, we'll be joined by Dr. Saeed Pirzadi, the Group's Chief Information Officer at Reliance Entertainment, and Shankar Jadhav, who heads strategy at Bombay Stock Exchange and also the Managing Director of its holding arm, BSE Investments, to further explore India's IT infrastructures and the total cost of ownership for data centers in the country. Saeed is one of the top CIOs in India with more than 19 years of experience across ISPs, retail, banking, internet, and media, while Shankar was also recognized as one of the top 100 influential people in the BFSI sector for his contributions in IT and helping to set up the largest telecom network throughout India. So, we'd love to hear from you, so please send in your questions or opinions at any time during the event by selecting the question mark icon in the GoToWebinar window. And please include your name, job title, company name, and country in your question for a shout out. And before we jump into our first session with Srijit, I'd like to say a big thank you to our silver sponsors, ST Telemedia Global Data Centers, and our bronze sponsor, Onion Technology, as well as all our supporting partners for bringing this event to you. So you can get all the details of any of these great organizations on the website where you signed up for this digital event on our website. So ST Telemedia Global Data Centers in India delivers customer-centric data center services and offers customized data center solutions with reliable, scalable, and secure colocation infrastructure to over 1,000 customers across industries like BFSI, CSP, manufacturing, e-commerce, and IT. Their PSUs power and protect mission-critical infrastructure, maintaining levels of service and uptime reliability to their 16 data centers across 8 cities in India, which are actually spread across 2.5 million square feet with a 105 megawatt IT load. So before we jump into this fireside chat with Srijit from STT GDC, let's just take a quick video, a look at how STT Telemedia data centers do their work and how you can count on that.
Back in the 90s, times were simpler. But the world has changed. From sports to education, recreation to medicine, and everything in between. Huge amount of data is now involved everywhere. You need to adapt to this change, and fast. Who would you count on to prepare you for this change? When the task is to take on this data explosion head-on, count on us. When the task is to take care of your business in a sustainable manner, count on us. When the task is to embrace digital transformation with smiling faces, count on us. With 15 data centers, sourcing 34% of power from renewable energy, 1,000 employees and over 1,200 happy customers, people we work for, people we work with, and the world we live in, count on us. ST Telemedia Global Data Centers, India.
So welcome to the show, Srijit. Now, we're experiencing exponential increases in India with smartphone penetration in India, as well as cloud adoption, with 40% of new enterprise applications likely to be going cloud native by 2022. So, in your opinion, what is driving digital transformation in the country? And do you have any examples of where STT GDC enables cloud computing in India?
Thanks, Stuart. Nice introduction. Thanks for displaying this video across. Yes, the subject we are talking about how India is going to contribute to the world uh, growing digital infrastructure. So yes, we are going on a tremendous growth as we are witnessing. If you look at the major contributors today, if you look at uh, the consumers spectrum, we have more than 600 million internet users, and uh, and for that more than 500 million smartphone users, and majority are using social media and active participants in social media. And the online shopping is going tremendously on an up. Currently, if you look at about 150 million users are using online shoppers, and this is expected to grow. Again, the gaming sector is increasing. Then the government platforms, like in India, it is e-Aadhaar enrollment, the DigiLocker, Jan accounts, and then the startup companies, the edge companies, and as we also experience um, the digital infrastructure growth, the financial transactions. There are 15 billion UPI transactions already witnessed. 19 billion app downloads are already witnessed. These are all the almost either number one or number two uh, in the global statistics, if you look at it. So on top of that, this year created with us this unprecedented uncertainties. So if you look at India had already adopted the digital initiatives, and yes, the transition has been very low. But if you look at the current trend, the organizations are, or they have to look at the business in a different manner. And as we speak, there are people who are looking at different business models to adopt businesses with enabling the digital platforms. And already, we can see a trend of the large content providers, the large hyperscalers are coming to India already. It is just because of the government initiatives India has. It's already on a growing aspects. So definitely, India is going to contribute big scale on this, and it is expected to grow in the coming days. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, as I was saying to myself, obviously, during this time, what I was saying was that in India's government is also a driving force for change in technology in the country, with moves like the data localization laws, and of course even an announcement made yesterday in the Independence Day for India. So my congratulations there in celebrating that. But yes, there was some movements made there as well. So obviously the government is very interested in digitalizing the country. So Srijit, how will government policies and regulations impact the cloud and data center industry?
Yeah, that's a good pointers. If you ask, the India government is always proactive and supporting this digitization, drive in India. And government has very clear policies and frameworks towards data policy, data center, which is enabling the data centers to go widely high in digitization initiatives. Yes, data localization is going to be a big move first and foremost. And while we have this, all this data is going to be local, and the amount of data to be stored, and the capacity is definitely increased. This will tremendously give the demand to the data center infrastructure providers, including co-location and cloud providers, which is already, we are seeing the momentum already here. Then the Digital India flagship. This is a government flagship by India. Has a clear vision and transform India to digitally empowered. That is one initiative is already driving in the Make in India project and the smart cities. These are the things already there, and a couple of policies we already either implemented or in pipeline. This is national digital communication policy, which is going to extend internet connectivity to everywhere. The vision is to provide at least 50 Mbps connectivity to every citizen, and 1 Gbps to all Gram Panchayats by next year. So that is another one vision. And then the personal data protection bill is already presented in Parliament, which is going to be legalized in coming days. Then the BFSI sector, RBI Vision 2021. With that, the financial transactions are going to be very high. We can see nothing less than 100 billion in another 1 or 2 years. These are the growth pointers already with us. And thanks to Prime Minister, who had a big announcement on last Independence Day, he announced 600,000 villages is going to be fiber optic network enabled in next 1,000 days. That is a big move. So out of 650,000 villages in India, majority of those villages are going to be fiber network enabled. And the places like Lakshadweep, etc., which is poor in connectivity today, is going to be enabled with submarine fiber optical networks. Again, this project are with specific timelines. I'm sure these initiatives and these drives, very clear pointers by the government, will definitely increase the capacity in India, which is a driving factor. So this is again is a big contributor to this growth which you are talking about.
Yeah, there's no doubt that with these movements by the government that quite probably more data centers are going to be needed in order to empower that fiber future, which will then obviously have some great impacts on business for businesses that need fast internet connections, and could hopefully improve innovation as well in the country and spur on that innovation. So with that in mind, STT GDC has an aggressive expansion plan within India. You already have 16 data centers already in the country. So what is driving the demand for data centers for STT GDC, and which type of data centers do you think are needed in order to spur on more innovation and growth within India?
Yes, STT GDC India is going to be a vital stakeholder for all this, digital drives and expansion. So we are sure and we are committed. We have a very firm business plans for supporting these initiatives and expansion. As you rightly mentioned, STT India GDC is operating in 8 cities with 16 active DCs live, and we have at present 2.5 million square feet data center with more than 105 megawatt at this point of time. And as we speak, we are on a growth aspect. There are many projects which are going across the country, and next to 3 to 5 years, we are going to double our capacities. So, which is again in line with if you look at the world trend. You rightly mentioned, today India is just contributing 2% to the global market, but again, which is expected to grow in double fold in next 3 years. When I say double fold in 3 years, if the capacity total 250 megawatt in India is going to be 500 megawatt in another 5 years, and which is going to be another double with 1000 megawatt or bigger than that in another 3 years. So that is the way it is going on. So STT is also in line with that, and to tell you that STT is holding the primary stake in India, more than 33% of the data center market space. And in another 3 years, we are going to add another equal amount of capacities as we speak, and it will definitely be increased, not lesser. Again, the places which we are currently expanding, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, Chennai, Delhi, and Calcutta and Hyderabad kind of cities will be added. And we may not be surprised to see with the kind of demand which is going to emerge from this digitization initiatives. There may be, a core concept. So at present, the data centers are operating in core cities, if you look at, and there may be a trend emerging, these data centers to be expanded in the edge aspects, so which will be smaller capacities, and it will act as a network convergence for aggregating the traffic towards the core data centers. So these are the initiatives, and these are the contribution STTGDC India is contributing to this digital growth, Stuart.
And that brings me on to my next question about the state of the Indian market in general. It's valued or forecasted to be valued at $3.2 billion US by 2024. So, as you mentioned, with edge data centers and different opportunities for the data center industry, where do you think that money is going to go? This 3.2 billion, and what investment opportunities are there for reliable infrastructure and data centers within the country?
Yeah, I think it's a fancy theoretics, I would say. I am not exactly sure what exactly would be the amount, but to my view, it may be larger than this. Why I'm saying this, because I told you about the STT story of our commitment to infrastructure growth in next 3 to 5 years. But I'm sure the other providers also are on the growth aspect in line with the expansion plans. So, as we speak, there are multiple projects happening, which is already underway. Some of these expansions are already live, or some of things are near completion. What I'm talking, the existing players are investing to expand their existing capacities, and a lot of new players are coming to India. So now India is going to be a destination for digital infrastructure we can talk about. So an infrastructure provider or a cloud provider or a content provider cannot eliminate India on their growth path. So that matter, India is a target. Each and every organizations is thinking to invest in India. I could see, mostly weekly, there are some announcement happening. Just day before yesterday, it came across one of the news is that an Israeli tech company is investing USD 30 million investment for expanding into India for their to meet their localization compliance. So what I'm trying to say, as we speak, the growth is happening, and the amount, which may be right, but it may be more than that.
Yeah, so with this growth happening, it makes me curious about the future of data centers in India and cloud as well, and what will that future look like, especially when we consider new technologies like AI, machine learning, 5G, for example, these technologies. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Srijit, on what do you foresee the future of data centers and cloud in India to be?
Yes, Stuart. I think we already touched upon this point, and whatever you talked about artificial intelligence, technologies are again fuel this growth path, right? So these are all the the contributors to this growth, and we already mentioned this next to 3-4 years. It is definitely going to be doubled at the minimum pace, and don't be surprised if it grows beyond double. So that's what I'm trying to say. Definitely, with the current demand and capacities, and if you look at many of the cities in India, the demand is driving capacity. some of the cities are still capacity is driving demand. So I think this trend will continue for next 2 to 3 years or beyond 3 to 4 years. Whatever we talked about, these are the contributors and add fuel to this growth path, and definitely it's going to be a moving in the same pace, at least double or more than double in next 3 to 4 years, Stuart.
Well, thank you for joining us, Srijit. That's all the time that we have for this, but I think you've heard it here first that yeah, the India data center market is an exciting one to be a part of, and as Srijit said, even it could be even more than 3.2 billion by 2024, especially considering this new announcement by the government for fiber across the country. So very exciting times ahead. So thank you, Srijit, for sharing those insights. Really fantastic to hear that from you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Pleasure. So next on our show it's time for our panel session to explore India's IT infrastructure and reliability with Dr. Saeed Pirzadi from Reliance Entertainments and Shankar Jadhav from BSE Investments. So ironically, as some of our viewers might have seen, that the network dropped out slightly for me with some sound issues, but we're back online now. But that leads us on very ironically and very aptly to our first question about whether India, also considering that the other countries with advanced networks and interconnection, does India have a reliable infrastructure to support their fast-growing digital economy, and how does it compare to other countries in Asia? So Shankar, let's start with you. As someone who's led and had experience in leading setting up of large telecom networks throughout India, what are your opinions about India's infrastructure reliability? Great, here we go.
As Saeed also will state, I worked with the same company 15 years back and we put up the whole network. And I can assure you, even then, we used to do all such video conferences. It's not a new feature. What we are looking at it is now mass usage of the same. And the network was well then. And Reliance has put up a very huge network in India during when we were together. We planned a capacity more than 100 times what we could envisage in next 5 years. So I can assure you that even if the data centers grow by 10 times more, the basic trunk capacity is available in India for fibers. That is not a problem at all. What is going to be the biggest problem is the last mile connectivity, and for which the infrastructure, the bandwidth for wireless and for wireline to reach each building is going to be the most difficult task. And I'm sure there are companies in telecom, though they are very hard tight now for money, capital, due to the past dues that are pending, I am sure they will meet the requirements. And the bandwidth is the only constraint in India, which is the problem. And the second would be that India is a vast country. Even if you put the bandwidth, it's mostly in urban centers. So if you want to reach half the population in rural areas, the bandwidth has to reach there, which is almost difficult. For instance, when I travel to some hill station, I cannot connect to my network on internet. I have to use circuit switch networks to connect to people. I think Dr. Saeed can explain more about the capacity in the network as he is there right now.
Yeah, Shankar, absolutely. Good afternoon, indeed. Happy to see you again after so many days. Yes, Shankar is right. Indeed, the capacity of fiber is absolutely there in India. The only last mile was the issue. Even when we started as a Reliance Entertainment around 15 years back, the convergence was the issue. But we have that since we are creating the parallel networks in the communication, Reliance Communication, and with that vision, we started Reliance Entertainment, which is very heavy bandwidth applications, correct? So as far as digital, data centers supporting digital infrastructure is concerned, today the scenario is improving so much that today India stands on cusp of major digital transformations, correct? The transformations which was already in the making right? And gain larger pace because of ongoing COVID crisis. Even at this time, while we are speaking and stuck at homes, we are conveniently communicating online. Consumers like you and me getting entertained by high definition video, by our OTT getting delivered to billions of homes on smart TVs today in India, right? And mobiles, e-commerce is booming and become a norm to get things delivered at our homes. Online payment channels are booming. Direct benefit transfers have been initiated by the government for millions of needies with the help of large digital initiatives. India initiatives like Aadhaar. Right? So our children education is practically shifted to online education post COVID. So all these examples show the maturity of the data center space and the digital space in India. Okay, and more importantly, if I say more and more government initiatives and government-owned companies initiated are digital today. Right. For example, take Indian Railways. Almost all aspects in ticketing, booking, and traveling experience is digital. Tax authorities, you take everything is digital. Obviously, the most enterprises applications are moving towards cloud from on-premise. More digital consumerization is happening on those apps today, which I quoted some examples, which need enormous scale, right? Enormous scale and larger uptime. So all these services and businesses I've spoken about are running on Indian data centers, correct? So Indian centric, right? Data centers in India not only empowering the organization, they are empowering the government as well. The people of India all across, you can say, nook and corner.
Yeah, and this brings me to my next question about, since considering that you both agree that India has reliable data centers to offer. So with that in mind, what do these reliable data centers offer to the digital economy, and what investment opportunities might exist in the country? So Saeed, you've given us quite a few examples on where data centers and reliable data centers can digitally empower organizations. So Shankar, from your point of view, what have you seen in how reliable data centers have empowered organizations for industries that you're involved in, and what investment opportunities might be coming up or might already exist for these for the digital economy based on the reliability of data centers?
Actually, BFSI sector is the largest puller of digitalization in India. The more and more people start trusting digital way of working, especially in the financial sector, it gives them added, conviction that digital is here to stay. Otherwise, Indians normally have a habit of taking all physical services, which I think this has changed. The whole COVID scenario has changed quite a lot. But one of the factors about having capital for data centers, see, data center is not like other businesses where you can add capital as required. In a data center, the data center has to be fully ready before your first client comes in. You can't break a wall or you can't do things afterwards. So you have to imagine a capacity that you want to reach. You have to imagine the demand and you have to build one. Once you build, you already think it's a sunk cost and you run after customers. And the customers that you get are likely to be with you for decades, if not for maybe half a century. Because as long as the companies survive, big companies like, say, e-commerce giants, they don't want to move a data center from somewhere to somewhere else. Though they have random data center usage, they want to have redundancy, they want to have multiple locations where they can operate from, etc. So the capacity requirement is huge. They want reliability, and the best thing that they want, which India can offer, which other worlds cannot offer, is the security, both physical and cyber security. India has been very good at it. You can see the resilience, and we call it cyber resilience, that Indian data centers have versus any data centers in the world, and we are really much, much better than them. What is lacking is the data privacy laws. The data privacy laws are still to be specified well and to be adhered. Like Europe, people have got GDPR for everyone, In India also, we are in the process. And I think once that happens, many people would like to have data centers in India.
And Saeed, do you have a similar perspective on this, especially considering your experience working in different industries like retail and banking? Do you have a similar point of view on this?
Absolutely. See, I myself built data centers in the ISP. The first cable ISP we started Happy. Building a data center is like physical infrastructure needs massive investments in building roads, bridges, airports, railways. The digital economy needs massive investments in underlying digital infrastructure in form of data centers. So we all agree on that, right? So building a data center is capital intensive task. If you specifically asking about the cost of ownership and all that, it also carries a process of approval from various departments. If you want to build say about around 40 approvals at this moment from various departments needed to establish a data center in India at present. So Indian government is very sensitive and supportive about these data center growth, of course, and announced the central data center park policies in recent budget salary. I'm sure government will come with the single window approval as soon as well. So I'm very confident about it. The kind of growth we are seeing in the data center industries today. See, all these requirements I mentioned carry a cost and huge cost to build a data center. Since land and other aspects, it varies from place to place, right? So we cannot define a standard cost of ownership, but yes, it needs lots of efforts indeed. Indeed, latest I see lots of real estate owned companies which also carry a multiple business like power generation are coming into data center business because of the Digital India initiatives. It's directly resulting in reduced cost naturally. And right now, you can see large investment flowing in India market, clear policies coming up. So that will reduce the cost of ownership, will directly benefit the end users, I suppose. That's my assessment.
And that flows very well into the next question on the total cost of ownership. And obviously, defining a total cost of ownership is a difficult one, especially, it's difficult to kind of have a large overview of what it might cost for per data center, for example. But just more broadly, what does the typical cost of ownership look like in India for data centers? And with, obviously, as you say, Saeed, with the cost of land and setting up of data centers and the design of data centers in mind, how can we improve this total cost of ownership in the future to benefit the users of data centers? Because as you would imagine, if we improve the TCO, there would be greater advantages for more business to be made in India, more global players as well as more local players as well. So starting with yourself, Shankar, based on what Saeed has said on the TCO, what are your perspectives on the TCO in India?
Anyone who operates data centers anywhere, they know that the capital cost is necessary and initially required. But after that, or even if you consider capital cost, the total cost of ownership, the major component is the power cost. It could be around half the cost, 50%. In fact, after 2 years, the cost of initial capital is not going to be worth it. So in my opinion, if you want to reduce the total cost of ownership, and as Dr. Saeed also rightly mentioned, power is going to be the major game changer, which is why if you have big power companies joining hands with you, it is one big advantage. Second advantage, in data centers, normally you have UPSs and batteries. So you actually store power for a certain period of time as you require. So they are aware that you can use power and store it. So lots of companies, especially in India, they have started banking on renewable energy, which becomes cheaper as well as you can store. And as you know that even our Prime Minister and the government is after renewable energy, especially solar. We have an international solar alliance in which Germany is also going to participate. I believe we have got huge strength being a tropical country there. So the cost of ownership will come down with the power cost being lower. And the one more thing that you have to understand, I don't know whether you see the technical sides of Indian data centers. Of course, now there are large companies like what we see, they understand it better. But there was a time, I know a few years back, my IT head would come and say, oh, the temperature here is 21 degrees. And I would tell him that if you lower it below that, you are going to actually spoil the IT equipment because there will be humidity formation, because India has lots of huge coastline and we have lots of humid climates, especially in Bombay, Ahmedabad, etc. So we have to be very clear what we are thinking of. We should not increase the required uh, boundary conditions. We want to run an efficient data center. If it can run between say 30 to 50 degrees centigrade, let's run it at that level. So there are lots of techniques. In fact, I have also seen new techniques where liquid cooling can be used, but it requires huge investment. So that may not happen in India. India has higher temperatures. So there are new technologies which will reduce the cost of power by keeping the temperature difference between the equipment and the outside air at a higher level rather than actual absolute temperature. So power is one. Second, India is really good at having water in those locations that we have data centers. There is no water issues normally. So water being there, so there will be lots of saving for using that water or even cooling, whether it's a chiller or some other purpose. So data center mainly power is the main constraint. And after power for IT equipment, the second is the cooling power requirement. If these two are managed, I think Indian data centers will be more efficient than many in the world. But yes, there is always an advantage of having it in the cooler places. But having it in cooler places means also long haul internet lines, the bandwidth constraints. You don't know what will happen whenever there is a problem with some place or the other. Having a data center just where the work is will really increase the response times. We as an exchange, we know how latency matters. I don't know whether, let me give an example here. The latency for exchange transactions, it's so necessary that in finance, the first guy always gets the worm. The first bird always gets the worm. So many people try to be in the colocation data center as close to your server as possible. So in financial transactions where time is critical, especially bidding or flash sales, etc., I'm sure that the data center being in India will really help and there'll be huge competition. What do you think, Dr. Said?
Yeah,
Do you think that
absolutely. I
the
agree
power is
totally.
the biggest cost and that is what we have to mitigate?
That's what I mentioned. Indeed, power and currently land are two important aspects. That's why the innovations should happen. Like Shankar said, if power companies coming up in data center business, that will be huge advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And Shankar also mentioned the advancements. Well, both of you actually mentioned the innovations that might come about, and what also might improve the data centers. We have Industry 4.0 technologies coming about, like machine learning and artificial intelligence, which might actually help power data centers more intelligently and to save power and be more sustainable as well.
But
So
you're forgetting IoT and 5G. Let me
yes,
tell you, that will
absolutely
be
as
the
well.
killer game changer in data center business, especially localized data centers.
Yeah, absolutely. 5G and IoT, these are going to have huge impacts on the data center industry, whether we look at power or we look at edge data centers. I can imagine these are going to have some large impact. So, and this is what I want to get your opinions on now, Saeed and Shankar. So, what will be enabled by these advanced infrastructures, and also a question of considering India's IT infrastructure right now, with power considerations in mind, is it capable of handling these increased data capacities that are needed for these technologies? So, Saeed, with your experience with working for a major conglomerate like Reliance, who needs this data center capacity and will likely continue to use more data as innovations continue. So does India have what it takes to handle the increasing data capacity needs in India? And what opportunities do you think will be enabled by advancing data center infrastructure in the country?
Yes, I agree. Indeed, I won't see any problem there. Basically, if you see my case, my particular case, I collect around 100 million events per day, and I have around 17 petabytes of data to mine and do artificial intelligence things and automate the products. So I won't see, indeed, I stated some of the government initiatives, which are very big. Indeed, there's a massive, for example, direct transfers kind of with the Aadhaar as identification, unique identification aspects government has initiated around 10 years back is in full swing now, right? So if you consider those kind of data, I won't see, absolutely won't see any capacity issues in India as data centers is concerned. They are very capable of, and we are very capable of, and we can able to improve more if with all these technologies. You know? If you see today's India, where every business is adopting business transformation through digital path. So it's not more of physical now. We are talking about digital today. All new startups coming with mostly technology-driven businesses. Most of IoTs, if you see, more of IoTs today, I see all more of artificial intelligence, IoTs. Talking people talking about 5G. 5G will be a big game changer, as Shankar said. Um, I, you know, more and more data centers emerging in India. Today, the most capable of, I won't see any capability issues there. Indeed, it keep on improving. That's my assessment.
And
Shankar,
Shankar,
what's your view in this?
I believe that the data center capacity existing today can easily cater to the doubling in the next 5 years also. That I don't see any issues there. But my bigger issue is when we start 5G and IoT going on, and then we will find a very difficult task because India has typically, except for few companies like, as we mentioned, Reliance, people don't think of huge things. You know, to imagine huge is little difficult for Indians not to imagine. They can imagine, but they feel very difficult to get the capital, raise the capital, and implement it. In fact, that is the biggest key, and which where we are sitting in the exchange today, we see that we can raise this capital also today in India. In fact, even during this COVID times, if you see our markets and if you see Reliance itself gathering so much amount of money, I think it's easy to raise capital. We require people who can visualize, who can have a vision and implement such things. They have to make big, huge projects, and for which we require giants. Earlier, we were constrained by, I still remember the days when if I want to build a data center or on-prem or in India, the cost of a data center abroad was cheaper for whatever reasons. Either they had built it earlier, they were offering me lower, etc. But today we are much better locally than abroad. If someone wants to have a cloud data center in India, it is almost equivalent to what you have abroad, and we feel very comfortable in India. I think that change is there. We are very okay with. There's no foreign branding required today in India. If you buy a phone, you are ready to buy an Indian phone also or a Chinese phone earlier, because we believe that the quality has improved all across, and Indian quality is next to none. In the sense, it's one of the best quality. Anyone you can see, come to any data center and you'll see the same thing. That is why the world over people are investing in data centers in India. You must have seen NTT investing here in India. STT has invested so much. There are lots of players here in the market, and I believe the number of players will grow. They will all be able to sustain. Yes, initially the demand supply will ensure that the rates are very low because the supply will be higher than the demand. And as time goes by, we will see that it will balance, and we have to pay as much money as we pay abroad. But capacity is not a problem. It's only the last mile bandwidth, which I think the government has to take seriously. Large companies have to take seriously. Even the mobile bandwidth that we get today, unless you are staying in the rich places, in Bombay also, your bandwidth is absolutely abysmal. I have to use 5, 6 instruments to get the bandwidth I want at home. So that we have to change. We have to give the poorer people also. In fact, government will do well if they give free bandwidth the way they give free food and free shelter or help people get that. That's what my view would be.
Correct, Shankar. It is directly proportional. The more consumption happens with the greater bandwidth, more data will generate and more we need more data center space behind. So it's all connected. It's not a separate thing.
I think really great perspectives from both of you there. I think whilst I did have one more question on strategies and the future of the industry, I think it would be a good time to move on to some question and answers as well, because we do have some interesting questions from the audience that are looking forward to the future. So rather than asking my question, let's take some questions from the audience. So we have one from Jay Balan from Snyder Electric, and he asks, what are your views on the data security angle that Shankar you mentioned and discussed? So with data centers being hosted in other countries, for example, what are your views on data flowing out of the country, and what global regulations or controls might emerge, considering we are certainly becoming a much more global society where data is moving from continent to continent, from country to country. So Jay Balan asks, will these global regulations exist? And if so, who will regulate these global regulations? So what are your perspectives on this, Shankar, in terms of the data security in India and then more globally?
I can tell you I remember once in a huge crowd, I had said openly that a data center keeping my data is inherently more secure than keeping it on-prem. And all the data center operators, they all came, they wanted to garland me for saying it, being in a position where I am in a financial industry. The reason is, whenever you hand over anything to anyone, you normally would package it properly so that it will not get spoiled or someone else will not have a look at it. When you keep it on your prem, you are a little casual. I'm not saying totally casual, but you are sure it's in your premises, no one will touch it, and no one has any access, etc. So actually, data centers increase your cybersecurity levels. As regards to your question about regulation and data flow across the world, let me tell you, except for certain countries, of which India is one part, most of the countries have not really bothered to regulate data flows as compared to countries like India. The main reason is, one is it's all encrypted data flows. Second is, this data is collected by those particular organizations. They are very huge, they are large. In fact, some of them are larger than GDPs or economies of many, many countries. The people are worried about the misuse of the data. One is misuse, and the second is the data leak. You can see lots of data leaks, etc. Fortunately, some of the good things which are not related to payments is that on a Facebook you can have an account which you don't have to validate with your Aadhaar card or something. Whereas so social media is safe enough. You can be anywhere you want to be in public eye, so you are keeping it open. But for financial transactions, there will be huge regulations, both I think in India and abroad. You wouldn't want Indian government to know about US transactions or Singapore transactions, for instance. Similarly, Indian government would not like others to know. So we have to observe these things. So if the data is part of the financial security, a financial transaction, or personally identifiable information, we have to maintain it in places locally, and as a redundancy we maintain it somewhere else, but we'll have to have bubbles created. This data center has data from 100 countries, so we have to ensure that if that country asks for that data as a copy, if required, if the original data center does not have, then only it is required, otherwise that copy is not required. But data leaks should not happen, and I think this regulation will come in slowly soon. And like the International Telecommunication Union, I have a feeling we will have an international data regulation union where data laws will be similar across the world, without which this will not work. Like we have today standards in mobiles, 3.5 mm jack for putting a earphone. The data standards have to come. In fact, we are trying to tell people, don't make country specific stacks. Like, you have India stack for Aadhaar or India stack for health now coming up. Why can't we think of a global thing? The only issue with global is, and pardon me, I'm exceeding a little brief here, so it should not be politically sensitive. But what happens is politicians want to actually control the data. I think the best way to handle data is the human eye should never see. It should be all machine driven, and the same applies to everything. I'll give an example. Are you more secure in a chartered plane or in a commercial plane? I feel more secure in a commercial plane, because in a chartered plane, if I'm going and someone wants to kill me, they can easily kill, no one will notice. But in a commercial plane, besides me, there will be 200 other people or 400 other people, and it will be a big scene if someone tries to kill me. So I always believe that if you go along with others, especially those who have got larger experience, it's better. And I think India will do well that way. We have got almost all standards coming from international standards, which we also have helped. So similarly, in data standards, we have to go in. Our IT community is really very well developed. If you ask any IT person in India today, you will see they're very knowledgeable. They are willing to work with. The only problem is some of the countries in the world, they think they are better than us, and they would rather keep the knowledge with them and trade on patents. I think we have to share patents and work together. Like if Android would not have been a free platform shared with everyone, I don't think we would have seen the way mobile phones jumped. At that time when India chose GSM over other proprietary methods, I think it was a very wise decision. Same way today, India, for data centers, we should have a standardized format. For data privacy, we should have a standard format, and we should decide. In India, there is a problem. India doesn't realize that individual has a right to his own data. And I'm not talking only of data. India, there are lots of things where we say the country comes first before a person. Though the founding fathers believed that the person is also important. So if there's a conflict, we should resolve the conflict rather than say, no, you are no one, the country is the biggest. In data also, we have to realize that a right to forget or deleting data or not willing to share data should be allowed, and which is currently not there. And of course, I'm not speaking from an official position. This is my personal view.
There's some really fascinating perspectives there, Shankar, definitely. And it will be very interesting to see in which direction the data center data privacy laws go, especially considering that we have other data privacy laws available in Europe. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for this. And with this challenge of data privacy in mind, we have a few questions for Srijif, actually. Srijif, I hope you're still with us, because we do have some questions for yourself as well. And so one of the questions that we've got is, what are the challenges with what do you see as the major challenges in expanding data centers in India? Could it be the data privacy? Could it be the power issues that we've discussed? And also, we have another listener who's interested to hear your perspectives on whether India has a reliable infrastructure to support this fast-growing economy. Going back to our first question, so Srijif, what are your opinions on the major challenges that face India, and does India have these reliable infrastructures? More than welcome to respond to Shankar and Saeed's previous comments on this as well, and share your own perspectives briefly.
Yeah, thanks. And indeed, these are the good questions, and these are the obvious questions are being asked today when this massive growth is happening. The obvious question is, are we ready, or the infrastructure is reliable? And Saeed and Shankar touched up well on it with respect to the majority of it. So let's say infrastructure aspect. The prime three infrastructure aspects is power, cooling, and network. So we may have to have a very reliable power, because power is the first and foremost the apparatus required to keep the lights up and running for 24 into 7 into 365 basis. So earlier, the power is a prime. Now coming to cooling. So cooling is also an equal contributor. So the power alone will not ensure the time and reliability of data center. The cooling is equally important. And then comes to the network. Network again, it is growing every day, every minute. The demand of network is growing, very fast. And the first question I heard, the challenges in building the data centers in India. Yes, the challenges in building, there are many, but it is getting eased. The kind of I think Said mentioned the approval levels. Currently there are about 40 approval levels, and we are also representing our needs to the government to have a common certification forum for data centers. I think government is considering those aspects and coming with a one single umbrella approval for data centers. So that is one challenge. And the second challenge, as I already mentioned, the data center build is going from the core cities, the tier 1 cities, to rural cities. So that was always a challenge, and I think Shankar mentioned about the leveraging the cooling aspects of the situations. Let's say we can build efficient data centers in a cool places like Dehradun or Kashmir kind of places. But the challenge was the massive network interconnection of this data. But the kind of digital initiatives and the policies or the fiber expansions and the mission by the country of expanding the fiber reach to 600,000 villages, and that is going to be the base, and definitely the base is going to grow. And if you look at India, is a big country with 1.3 billion population, is a big strength for us. And all these people, when it comes to digital platform, it is going to be massive. And the fiber, the basic service operators, so-called BSOs, are left with no choice other than first and foremost making the infrastructure reliable, then scaling the capacity. Capacity is going to be more and more on a daily basis. So definitely the capacities are going to be there. With these challenges, I'm sure the day by day the challenges are getting minimized. The first challenge itself was the power availability, right? The first and foremost, when you talk about power, the availability of power itself was a challenge. So nowadays, with the liberal policies by government, the private powers, the renewable energy, it is contributing surplus power some of the states as we speak. And the second question with respect to power was the reliability. Even the power is available, is it reliable? So it was a big question mark. India traditionally it is unreliable country as far as power is concerned. So a lot of technologies are happening around. Especially people like us, the large data center providers are investing on dedicated power substations. Let's say extra high tension power substations, which is directly connecting to the grid, eliminating the dependency of local substations. So that massive step increased the reliability of power in a massive. The third challenge in the power itself was the scalability. So first and foremost, the availability is taken care, the reliability is taken care, then the scalability. So how do you scale with the speed? So let's say the kind of demand coming from these customers, especially the large cloud providers and hyperscalers, the demand is going to be exponential. Let's say today they want 5 megawatt, tomorrow they want 10 megawatt, and after tomorrow they want 15 megawatt. And as we speak, it looks simpler, but building a infrastructure, it is not that kind of simple. So we may have to expand again a lot of approval levels. It's not that easy process as we speak to improve the capacity. So that way, the extra high tension substations are playing a vital role, ensuring the reliable power to the data centers. So yes, challenges are there, but the challenges are well covered with these mitigation mechanisms. And fiber, yes, of course, the growing trend. If you look at the fiber reliability, if you look at India 5 years ago, every day we used to get some kind of service interruptions due to fiber cuts. But today the service interruptions because of the fiber cuts are very, very minimal. Simply because of the resilience has gone big way. All these basic service operators and the network service providers are increased the resilience of the fiber in a big manner, so that the kind of service interruptions by fiber, it is very, very minimal, and it is going to go good in the sense various service level agreements and the enterprise are coming and contracting and asking for 100% uptime. So it's going to be a challenging task given by the customers to us. So the service providers like us are challenged, and we are committed to provide that kind of 100%. So there are as we speak, we have customers with written SLA of 100% uptime in terms of power, cooling, and network. So other aspects, I don't want to touch because Shankar has well covered on the data privacy and security aspects. I think covered. I'm sure this answers the question. If any more clarity is required, you can reach out to me one-to-one. So I'm more than happy to explain you further on this subject, whoever asked this question.
Absolutely, and we've had a lot of questions today, and sadly we don't have time to touch on any more, but another challenge that was mentioned was, of course, the COVID pandemic, and I think for that and all the rest of the questions that went unanswered today, I will endeavour to write some articles on it and do some research and come back to our panelists and Srijith to discuss this further and get some answers for you on these unanswered questions. Very, very interesting, and India is most certainly one of these, a country that is certainly one to watch in the industry, in terms of also how India responds to the challenges, not just the challenges itself, but how they respond to it. And as Srijith and Shankar and Saeed have mentioned, there are reliable infrastructures and responses there to respond to these challenges. And I think that hopefully India has a bright future ahead of it, and also in control of these challenges as well. So that's all for today's panel sessions, and I just want to thank everyone for sending in those fantastic questions, and even the ones that went unanswered. Really great engagement going on there. So I'd like to just say a big thank you to the panelists for joining us and for sharing those fantastic insights. A really great discussion going on. And also a big thank you to our silver sponsor, STT Telemedia Global Data Centers, and our bronze sponsor, Onion Technology, for bringing this event to you. So we had over 200 attendees join us today, some fantastic engagement going on. So thank you so much for making this event a success. We'll email you a recorded version of this event to share with your friends and colleagues. And you can also watch this event or any of our past events on demand at W.Media/on-demand. And we hope you can join us again for our next digital events as we continue to explore the cloud and data center industry in India. So first, on Tuesday, October 20th, we'll take a look at how you can design and operate smart and sustainable data centers. And then on Wednesday, November 18th, join us as we take a look at solutions of efficiently powering and cooling. Our audience members can join us for our next two shows, where we'll discuss power and cooling in India data centers, which was a really fascinating discussion between Shankar and Saeed on that topic in particular. And finally, I hope you can connect with us, and we'll be sure to have better connection. If you would like to connect with our vast network, we can help build your presence with event sponsorship opportunities, digital marketing through thought leadership content, and collaborative partnerships as well. So do get in touch with us and the W.Media team for more information on that, and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for more. We're also on Twitter now. That's W_media_tech. On Twitter. You can join us there as well. So finally, all that's left to say is thank you for joining us, and I look forward to hearing how you'll tap into India's cloud and data center markets, and I hope I can see you for our next events very soon. So take care, everyone. Be safe, and so long. That concludes today's website. Thank you, everyone, for joining.